What's up, Snarf Gang? It's your boy Snarf Brownie, and today I will be reviewing the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe omnibus. This one is a Fatty McFatterson at over 1,400 pages. This collects
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe first series, issues 1 through 6, second series, issues 1 through 19, the Eternity War 1 through 15, Masters of the Universe digital chapters 1 through 8, Masters of the Universe Origin of He-Man 1, Origin of Hordak 1, Origin of Skeletor 1, DC Universe versus Masters of the Universe 1 through 6, He-Man and Thundercats 1 through 6, DC Comics Presents 47, Special Masters of the Universe Review and Masters of the Universe 1982 1 through 3, along with the treasure trove behind the scenes artwork.
Bro. I'm not gonna lie. Hold on, before I get into this, let me show you the book without the dust jacket on. For the hardcover we got. That's, you see the splash art. That's what you get for the front, back, and spine. Now, this is kind of hit or miss, in my opinion. Not necessarily like hit or miss, but I would, if I had to choose I tell you a demographic that this was for, it'd probably be like 12 years old. And the dialogue is not like super, it's pretty generic sometimes. It can be pretty generic. The art is very good all the way through, though. I will give props to the art. There's not really any blood or gore in it. It's mostly just like cartoon level violence. There is murder in it, but like, well, okay, there is blood in certain parts too, but it's pretty far out. And another thing I will say is, like, even when there's blood, like, there's 3 fake out deaths of He-Man in this story. I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 that are like fresh in my mind, but I'm pretty sure they faked out his death a 3rd time. And every single time he doesn't die, so it kind of takes weight away from it. And if you've read through this, you'll know what I'm talking about, but there is like a huge twist like halfway through this that a lot of people are really polarized on. And I didn't love it. I mean, I didn't hate it either, but that's only because I'm not like extremely invested into every character, because the writing is like pretty simplistic, but the plot is decent and the concepts in the book are pretty cool. The violence is pretty action-packed, which I do like. However, I will say that a lot of things that happen in this don't feel like they have a lot of weight to them, while others feel like really monumental. Like certain character deaths, they do last forever once they die. Well, kind of. Most of them do. And I mean, there's a lot of other dimensional stuff that brings people back, which is kind of annoying. I'm not a huge fan of the multiverse, even though it's part of He-Man. And also, I'm not going to spoil other things because they're pretty major spoilers, but I'm also not a huge fan of one of the things that happens later on in the book. He-Man breaks his own sword because he's told a vision of the future where they're at war at the time. I'm not going to spoil everything, but basically he feels so in danger all the time that he feels the need to never leave his He-Man form and go back to being Prince Adam. And that corrupts his mind and ends up making him a tyrannical ruler. Which is stupid to me why you would break the sword after that, because you can always just have self-control and just change back into Adam sometimes. I mean, I feel like the whole point of being shown your future is to be able to change fate. And I get that he did change it, but that's kind of like hearing about a fortune where you become an alcoholic, and instead of just trying to, you know, just not drink as much, you just instead like get rid of every, like, okay, well, if there's only one alcohol on earth, you just destroyed it, basically. That's basically what he did. But at the same time, the sword, it like gives him all this power, so I feel like he lost a lot of aura at that point in the series. And it was pretty good. I will say that I dropped it at certain times, because the first time I dropped it was with the Masters of the Universe during the DC event. I thought that them crossing over with like the Justice League and stuff, it kind of broke immersion for me. I was like, how are these people even meeting up? Like, I get that he's a part of the DC like publisher, and everything in DC is technically a part of the same multiverse, but it just broke immersion for me. They clearly only put that clause in there to do crossovers like this, but they just don't do it for me. They should stay apart from the main story, which it's an Omni, so it's going to include everything. And the Thundercats crossover, I felt like it made more sense, but in hindsight, I think that the DC crossover was still better. The Thundercats crossover had some of the most generic dialogue it's very cookie cutter of a crossover, in my opinion. You are just reading it for the fight scenes and the art, pretty much. And to see these two characters together, there's nothing special about it, in my opinion. What was really cool was the 1980s stuff, like this. And I know I just said I didn't like the DC crossover, but like the crossover here is not nearly as egregious. And they show some other stuff. Superman's not in every single one, though. He's these ones in forward, he's not in them. And I did think that reading the 1980s stuff was cool. They should have put it at the front, though, because like canonically this does come first, and I honestly think that these 3 issues have some good world building in them that this other story could have used. Because yes, there is a lot of origin stuff in this, but in terms of like the masters of the universe, and I mean like the different generals of the different like areas of Eternia, it would have been cooler to see the older issues first, because they expand more on their realms whenever He-Man's going to collect these amulets that will show him where the other half of the Sword of Power is, because Skeletor has kidnapped the goddess that he follows, and he's going to kill her unless he basically does what he says. That was a pretty cool plot line, but it's pretty detached from the main book other than that, because way older material. Another thing I will say that I didn't love about the book is that it ends at the Thundercats crossover. Once that ends, that's the end of the whole thing. I felt like that was not a great place to end it off, which might have been why they put the 1980 stuff at the end, so it didn't seem like such a bad ending, I guess. But if you like somewhat campy but like pretty generic comics where it's like the story is not really totally what you're there for the art and the colors and the crazy fight scenes and the hype beastie moments, this is definitely the comic book for you. But for me, I'm not a super huge like hype beastie comic fan, so it wasn't really my thing. And this was actually like probably one of the first maybe 5 Omnis that I owned, and it took me this long to finish it. So that should tell you how much my interest was leaving me while reading this. Although it was still it was still entertaining throughout like most of the start to the finish. Like it didn't drop that much, but I would say that it's just very mid. And because of that, for story, I'm going to give it a rating of 3.5 out of 10. Not because it was like egregiously terrible, but if I'm taking into account the parts that I thought were pretty shitty compared to the parts I thought were good, like the parts that are shitty are like pretty shitty, and the parts that are good are just above average. So I'm gonna have, I'll bump it up to a 4 just because of the 1980 stuff at the end, because I did enjoy that a lot. But in terms of art, I'll give it a 10 out of 10, honestly, because the art in this was absolutely beautiful. Great art in this book. Matter of fact, let me just flip through some of it to show you guys some more of this art, because the art's not that crazy right now, but I think the part where the art gets the craziest is during the part where Hordak is invading. I'm not going to get into him too much because I don't want to spoil, but that part is pretty crazy, and it has the best art in the whole thing is on that arc. But yeah, another thing I just didn't like the family betrayal stuff in this book too, without spoiling too much. Like, because you don't know which member of the family is going to betray who. I will reveal that it's just weird, because a lot of the family betrayal stuff just doesn't have any real weight to it, I feel like, because characterization of the characters before said acts of betrayal, not super great, so the payoff wasn't that great either. And a lot of the consequences of the betrayal didn't even end up mattering in either situation. So that's just my thoughts on the book. Anyway, that was my He-Man Masters of the Universe Omnibus review. Snarf Gang out.